Yearning to play a few rounds of Gwent. That ought to set me straight.
It's Commander's Horn, episode 89. It's a Challenger 4 hype episode, and I've got two great people to chat with. New additions to the Gwent broadcasting team, Flake from Mana Burn Events and Shin Mary from Team Aretuza. I'll be talking with these fine gentlemen about their journey from fan to cast and crew, and why we're going to get into why Challenger is going to be the best event Gwent's ever seen to date on this episode of Commander's Horn.
I can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, that happens. I just have no idea. It's a mystery. What happens, Shinmiri, is no matter what, the whole podcast will go fine. Everybody will be able to hear me perfectly. Everything records perfectly. But for some reason, the guest on Skype, when I play that opening drop, I cut out completely for somebody on the podcast. It's classic.
But I think you're okay now.
It started off as being a joke with Mogwai because no matter how many times I explained it to him, I started the music and he'd be like, wait, I can't hear you. Hey, stop everything. Stop the show. I can't hear you. And the voice.
See, I knew that one. I knew that one coming in, and I was just like, I wonder if Shin's gonna actually say anything. But I was sitting back and I'm just waiting. I'm like, waiting for the cutouts to happen, and
I'm like, why is Flake so calm about this? Is this a problem on my end?
Yeah, it makes it even worse when no one says anything at all. So it's just that awkward silence that you guys hear when I do the sounds. And the sounds. Speaking of sounds, the sounds of the gentleman you're hearing for the audio only listeners. That's Flake and Shinmiri. These are two of the newest members of the Gwent broadcast team. And last podcast I did, episode 88, I actually had Ash Lazelle on the podcast, and unbeknownst to me, she was also announced as the Gwent broadcast team. Actually, full disclosure, I did know at the time, but nobody else did. So he couldn't talk about it. But when I asked her to be on the podcast, legitimately, I had no idea. So it was kind of a coincidence, but I did know at the time of the recording. It's just too bad we couldn't really talk about it because I'm sure she still has a lot to say about it. I'm sure she's been saying it on her stream. But I've got you here today. Today being August 23rd, 2018, great day for your weekly Gwent podcast. I am Mick Beard, of course, and I am here with Flake and Shinmiri. Flake, thanks for joining me. First off, I want to say hi to you, my old friend of the show. You've been on the podcast a number of times, but
Absolutely.
You're here in a new light. Now you are part of the Gwent Masters broadcast team. So, I mean, we're probably going to be talking about this a lot. But how are you? How you feeling? And for anybody who doesn't know you, how did you get involved with Gwent?
well, here's the thing. And now, as I am newly minted as the host of Challenger 4, which is a dream come true if anybody known me from my humble roots, early streaming, and to the people who have discussed me early on about what my goals were when I started streaming. Hosting an event like that was essentially the top of the peak. So I'm on another planet, but I would never forget my roots, which is the first podcast I ever did was when you invited me on to be on your show, which was a dream come true as well. That was a very, very awesome thing. So, my shine comes from, the fact that I would say that you yourself were the one who sort of launched that. So thank you, Mick B, for that. And honestly, how did I get involved in Gwent? Well, that was a story much like the one that I just told, which is that you got me into it from the days where I would sit on your couch with you, completely ignoring your wife, and where we'd sort of theory craft Hearthstone decks together and sort of see what the best way to maximize Oil Rogue was. So
because you'd come over to hang out with her, but I would just hang out with you and we'd play cards.
Yeah, you'd sort of the best would be when you'd kind of give her a look and be like, "Is it okay if I bring the TV screen to the couch?"
Is basically how that went down.
So you guys were friends before Flake even started playing Gwent, huh?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So Flake is essentially you grew up next door to my wife, so you are neighbors, and I met Flake through my wife, who goes by the screen name La Vegetaliana, and it just so happens like the streaming thing. It's kind of like you started streaming before I did. You started streaming Hearthstone, Flake, and then I got involved with Gwent, and I'm like, hey, you should probably check this game out. And you did eventually, and you put in all your own work. Like, it just happens that we both kind of had the same drive and passion, and we're similar, like-minded Canadian boys. So that's just how it goes.
That's such a cool story, though. Like, I feel like it could go in a movie or something.
Well,
yeah,
when-
the story's
When-
still being told. And Flake, I want to dig in a little bit more with talking about, but I don't want to leave Shinmiri hanging here. He's been,
No,
been
definitely not.
silent
Go,
for
go,
too
go.
long. I also just want to say hello, Shinmiri, as we are meeting for more or less the first time. Team Aretusa's Shinmiri, who is joining Swim on the analyst desk at Gwent Challenger number 4. Shinmiri, is this? Would you put that the same way as Flake, dream come true situation?
For sure, for sure. I come from humble beginnings as well as a small time streamer with no face cam. This was maybe 9 or 10 months ago, and now we're finally making it. We're on the big stage, and I'm very happy, very excited to join Swim on the analyst desk to see the huge production value from Challenger and to meet awesome people like the players and yourself, McBeard and Flake. Really looking forward to the event.
Yeah, you'll have a great time with Swim on the analyst desk, particularly because he's forced to wear nice clothes. So you'll have that
Only
benefit.
on the top half.
Yes, yeah, we're obviously just ripping on Swim as he notoriously did Challenger 3 in cargo shorts, and notoriously, but not notoriously enough, cast a 2-day Wild Hunt event in a bathrobe. God damn. All right, so it would be nice to see him in a blazer again. Tell me. I'll tell you what. So there's lots to talk about. Obviously, we're going to get into some news. There's stuff to talk about. I want to break down Challenger 4 with you guys completely because, we're going to be living and breathing it starting next week. So, but I wanted to start, lead things off here. Generally, though, so Flake, like the people who know you, obviously you've been streaming Gwent for a while. You've been streaming Magic: The Gathering as well and Hearthstone in the past, and you are also part of the organization team that has put on the Wild Hunt events in Philadelphia with No Control, Joe Snow, and many others as well. How important has the Mana Burn projects been to your overall, I guess? I mean, you obviously have a job, so I'm going to say career. I'm going to say kind of hosting career and esports career and streaming career. Although you are not you are full-time streaming and you are full-time job.
yeah.
So this guy works hard. If you guys don't know Flake, he puts in a lot of time. But how important has Mana Burn been for you and kind of your overall kind of outlook on, I guess,
Right.
how life is going for you?
Well, see, this is the interesting thing. So again, I mean, Mana Burn was kind of the consequence of the fact that Wild Hunt 1 was such a success. And when other organizations, other companies, and other entities approached us to sort of branch out, do other Wild Hunts, to do other events, we kind of had to sort of put our brains together. Of course, that would be No Control, Joe Snow, Mark Theus, myself, and big shout out as well to Thrilling, who does a lot of of the work for us as well. She's awesome in that regard. But Mana Burn we're not a team. We're not a streaming crew. We're not a this or that. We are a legitimate registered company that puts on tournaments now. So what does that entail? I mean, what does it mean for me? It means that a lot of the effort and a lot of the blood, sweat, and tears that I put into this is now something that's tangible and something that can actually be seen as legitimate. Because when you're approaching companies such as CDPR, such as Blizzard, Bethesda, all these other companies that we're in contact with, we have to put on the front that we're legit, and we have a revenue because they want to do business with other businesses. So doing this has really put on a professional face and has put us all together and on a sort of a track to do this the right way, so that we can go forth and put more events like Wild Hunt 1 and 2 and 3. Hint.
Whoa.
Ooh, we can talk about that later. But and not just for Gwent, but for other games as well, which is really exciting. So it has really, and like you said, I work hard. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I have a regular 9 to 5-er, and then I come home and do my Mana Burn stuff. But this has been another passion for me. This does not work. This is a labor of intense love that I am more than happy to, just give my heart and soul to.
I mean, we all three of us know that we put in a lot of time. Shinmiri, you stream a lot. You've built up a pretty solid fan base. You're kind of I know when you send hosts to me. Usually you're on when I start. I think I can't remember exactly when you start, but I've peeked in on your streams quite a few times, and you're always doing the educational analytical, or you're going for rank 1, and you're doing it in style with something awesome like Northern Realms. You've done it with veterans as well, I believe. But you stream every day. You've built a really solid fan base. What is it like to be focusing on Gwent so so deeply in this pre-homecoming time? Because I'm going to let you answer this, but I'm also going to bring up an email that was sent in to Commander's Horn that was actually talking about this exact concept. So it's just a general of kind of as we approach the last couple of months before homecoming, not a lot has changed though. So how do you keep the stream and the game interesting for you as you stream every single day?
So I think the biggest part for me to keep things fresh is just to play new decks, not to play the same top tier meta decks that you see all the time.
God
like
bless you, sir.
Or like Alchemy. I've been trying out like Pavko Gale, Ethne-less, the Northern Realms with Redanian Night-Elects and Witch Hunters. Just trying to come up with interesting things that's both competitive but also fresh. And I'm actually been pleasantly surprised by how much there's still out there that is kind of relatively untapped. And we still see new decks popping up in the last month or so. Like the Tempo Reveal Calvite deck is relatively new. The Redanian Night-Elect, like more armor heavy, is new. And I hate playing mirror matches. So whenever if I can find a good deck that pretty much avoids mirror matches, I'm happy. And it's been better than expected. We're like 4 or 5 months now since the homecoming announcement. And I'm still enjoying streaming. I'm still enjoying the game. I don't actually stream every day. I stream weekdays. So I take weekends off, so that helps as well. Just not having to getting a break, once in a while also helps a lot.
Yeah, I feel like weekdays has always been my jam as well. When I've been a little sparse lately. This has been kind of like I guess I've eased off a little bit because I know the news is going to come down. It's going to rain. It's going to rain down and it's going to pour when it comes in. So I know it's going to get really, really crazy and it's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm going to keep talking to you guys just about yourselves, but I just also want to let everybody know this episode of Commander's Horn is recorded live on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/McBearded and will be posted on YouTube where you can find me as McBeard. And Commander's Horn is recording right now on Thursdays, and that's where we're going to keep it because traveling has me rushing home on Tuesdays. Tuesdays come really fast for me on travel weeks, and I want to do stuff on Thursdays with people live at the event. So I'm going to try Thursdays for a while, as we're doing today right now. You can find all episodes of Commander's Horn at commandershorn.com. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Pick up our feed through your favorite podcasting apps, and send your emails to commandershornpodcast@gmail.com or tweet at us at commandershorn. And finally, I just want to let you know, last thing, that this week's show is brought to you by our sponsor, Mahaka Mail. In a world full of elves must die and death to Alduin, just remember that everyone loves sharing a pint with a dwarf. That sounds so wholesome, but this fake ad, I had a hard time wording it because I didn't want it to sound like racist. But it's like everybody hates everybody, but no one says I hate dwarves. Like that was the idea. Anyway,
everyone's friends when they're drunk.
Everyone's friends when they're drunk. Exactly, but no one's saying dwarves must die. I'm just putting that part out there. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is this episode is brought to you by our Commandos. Our patrons at patreon.com/CommandersHorn. Thanks, everybody, for keeping the mics on in the podcast ad-free. So, just with my guest one more time, I just want to talk to you, Flake. You do the Mana Burn podcast as well, which is a little different from the Commander's Horn podcast in that it focuses on card games overall. But you had a really important guest that was Gwent-related in Powell Berger last week, and you had him open up a bit about what it's like to be the CM for a game that's kind of under fire right now, that's under a big kind of evolution right now, or a revolution, you might say. And you got a chance to kind of ask him the hard questions. And he's in his home, he's vulnerable. How was it to actually have him on the podcast? And how has it been actually getting big names as far as like the people that you want to talk to for card games and stuff like that? How has it been going, and how was that one in particular?
The podcast, and I have to say, 89 episodes, which we're currently recording right now, is a tremendously important milestone. Everything after episode 2 is an enormous milestone, I've just learned, because it's so hard to get one of these off the ground and to make sure that you have a quality sustained. So congratulations on that as well, my man. This is a huge achievement. 11 more episodes till 100, which I'm sure there'll be all kinds of prizes and $100,000 giveaways, which I'm sure you'll promise later on, and I'll hold you to it.
Actually, hold on, just really quick interjection. Next episode, which we're going to do live from Warsaw, and you two are both invited because I'm going to invite everybody who wants to come out and hang out. That is actually the 2-year anniversary of the podcast. But I believe awesome. It's next week's episode 90. So whatever it is, 52 weeks a year minus whatever it is for 90. That's how many weeks I actually took off of the podcast. But I think it was episode 0 was 2 months ago next week, and then I took 2 weeks to refine it, and then I actually posted the first episode a couple weeks after that. That's
That's
all
awesome.
I wanted to say.
Okay, well, no, that's huge news, given the fact that 2 years to do this podcast. So when we sort of embarked on this journey to do a podcast, we were kind of we were not looking to encroach onto other people's territory. We didn't want to give a repeat of what other people had already accomplished and whatnot. And there was a lot of respect for your podcast because it has exceptional guests, it has really insightful topics, and it really digs deep into Gwent itself. But we wanted to do something that encompassed the entire sphere of digital CCGs, and even a little sort of sprinkling of paper involved as well. And Joe and myself have a huge pedigree with all kinds of different card games. I'm not claiming to be an expert on them, and that's why we have the guests that we do. And so basically the quick format for it is we recap the week's worth of notable headlines and why it's relevant. Then we go to a guest format where we discuss one. And you're right, I mean, last week was about 8 days ago or 9 days ago, or actually a week ago exactly, on last Thursday, we had Pavel Berja on the show. And it was a really interesting take because I know that whenever he's on any particular show or whenever he's streaming, the immediate action is to jump down his throat about leaks and information about a game that he's so intimately tethered to, that is in a period of mystery and just it's veiled by not just a thirst for knowledge, but just this drought so it's people are thirsty, but they don't have anything down the pipe that they can really look forward to other than sort of a mysterious state. So besides going into the deep questions of, what can you tell us? Are you still on track and this and that? And we kind of sort of hammered him down at a time slot within his home where I'm sure he was, half in the bag or half sleeping or whatever, whatever he does. So he seemed great. It's just, you can tell that there was a certain amount of exhaustion within him for the topics that we spoke about. And I didn't want to press him too hard on it. And I understand that it's also his job, his duty to provide information about the content that's going down. But I wanted to sort of touch upon, him personally, and like his bike riding and whatever. And we got some really interesting looks into his personal life that I was surprised that was not sort of where I wanted to go. I just want to, discuss his biking and whatever. But there was some very, a very candid moment that we shared, which was really important. I find that was discussed.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was really good, and of course, you're probably gonna throw some plugs out there a little later. But Manivern Events is the Twitch channel where you can find the VOD of that, and I'm not sure if it's uploaded on YouTube, Flake. But
it's also up on YouTube as well. We have our rebooted version. Yeah, I will send you those links and etc. so we can share them for sure.
Shinmiri, on your side, you are part of the member of the growing team Aretuza, but you've been on the team for quite a while. Were you part of the founding group of Team Aretuza? You've been on it since it was just about 6 or 7 people, I think.
It's been a year now since I've joined Team Aretuza. Okay. I don't know if I was considered the original founding group, but I think within the first week or two, I joined. I actually found them through the subreddit Competitive Gwent, which is pretty much dead now.
Yeah, it was so small, and it wasn't held up at the time.
Yeah, but that's how I found them, and I'm really glad that I saw that post and joined that amazing group of players and people. It's been a year now of awesome, just hanging out, talking about Gwent, discussing deck lists, practicing for tournaments, and they've helped me a lot with my stream as well and promoting it. And there's a lot of exciting things to come with Team Aretuza as well.
And we'd say you're a core member, and you stream a lot. But do you have any responsibilities outside of that?
Yeah. As far as involvement with the team, probably first and foremost, obviously, I'm a streamer, and in the past I've helped raise basically awareness for the team as well through my stream, because I plug the team Discord and the website on my channel, and then I've also been involved with the Aretuza Gwent Talk show that we've been doing maybe 6 episodes now, I think.
Right.
Where I've been co-host a few times with Apero and Dutch Boy. And also, I've helped the professional players prep for tournaments in the past. I helped Andy and Demorcus and Malegion a bit, just prep for Gwent Opens, and also for this upcoming Challenger. I'm trying to be involved with that as well. And coming up soon, Aretuza is going to be, with Homecoming, release. Aretusa is going to be really kicking into a next gear with releasing content on their website. We're looking to start something called Aretusa Academy, which we mentioned on the last, I think, 2 Gwent talks ago on our talk show. And it's going to be a kind of a coordination with CDPR to release like tutorials for players of all different sorts of skill levels. And I'm really looking forward to being involved with that. It's going to be a really big, ambitious project.
That's really cool. Yeah, I know DeMarcus has been. I've talked to him about it, I think, a little bit as well. I know that he's. It's something that he's been pushing for. So that's really cool stuff that you guys are working on. So I mean, man, all 3 of us we're part of podcasts here. So it makes sense that the broadcast team does a lot of broadcasting. I mean, it just kind of it kind of connects for me. But there's some news I want to talk to you about, gentlemen. So let's get into the news here because some things did happen in the world of Gwent, even though we are in this drought. Sort of, we're calling it the drought, or perhaps the Karathi heat wave, whatever you want to call it. We are in it. So there have been some things that have happened. So let's talk about that, including a big screenshot from Pal Berja right after this. All right, my friends, I did update the stream title. Thanks for throwing that out there. The stream title should be Commander Soren episode 89. And let's talk about the big news. And I replied to Berja and I said, we're going to have to talk about this on the podcast, or maybe even do 2 podcasts about this. Just to show, what's the word you use, Flake? Thirsty? Just to show how thirsty we are for new information. Pal Berja tweeted a screenshot of Gwent Homecoming this morning, sort of. So this is kind of a joke story, but the tweet was... If you, and I'm going to put the link in the show notes, but the tweet was, and I quote, "No one in the office wants to challenge me," with a sad face and a hashtag leak. And then it's a picture of a otherwise black screen that says "searching for a worthy rival," and then a back button, as in this is the matchmaking screen for Gwent. So let's just break this down for the next 2 or 3 hours, because I think that there's a lot to really take from this.
Oh, there's easily like an hour worth of just to divulge what font is being used.
Give me your hot takes, Flake. Give me your hot takes on this spicy homecoming screenshot.
Now, here's the thing. I mean, my first impression of this entire thing, and I'm no analyst, so I'll leave this to Shidmiri afterwards. But my first, before I pitch it to you, Shin, is that there's a back button. So clearly, it's not a complete balls out, let's go for it. Because if you're gonna, wuss out on it, you can always just back out. And I don't know how I feel about that.
Does the back button actually work? That's the big question.
That's also a big question as well. That might actually have to come with another update. But it's really cool to show that they're slowly sort of throwing the breadcrumbs down.
There, I just put it in the chat if you haven't seen the link of this hot tweet. Yeah, I mean, the back button, and it looks almost grayed out. Maybe you can't get out. We know we've tried matchmaking. You try to click the get out. It's like, I forgot to change that one card. It doesn't do anything. This hasn't been installed.
Too late.
Also, the wording change. Now it says worthy rival and not worthy opponent, so it doesn't completely sound like the Hearthstone matchmaking.
Remember this?
That's a little bit.
Yeah,
this bug. Yeah, there it is.
As Flake holds up the Flake made a couple of mugs for us. When was that, for Christmas or something? When we both.
That was like 3 years ago. Yeah.
It was pre Gwent. We both played Hearthstone. He made me. It said worthy opponent, just like that. I have one that says McBeard on it. And it says worthy opponent. So no longer will Gwent say worthy opponent. It's a small victories here. Worthy opponent has a better ring to it. Yeah, but make it.
I think
make it
rival is a little darker, a little grittier. It's also got the black background, so maybe they're going for like a more darker Witcher theme with this loading screen.
Now,
it's also,
yeah. Exactly.
There's no like screenshot of a card, at least from what we can see here, right? So I don't know if it's just going to be, if this is just a small part, but I like those screenshots. I think it's really adds some value to especially newer players to see some cards that they might have never seen before.
Yeah, with no loading screen images, Reddit's probably been tearing this apart for days because it clearly shows that CD Projekt Red doesn't care about artwork anymore, which was like their one pillar. So I'm sure that it's just another blunder, right? Anyway, this has been a fun fake story. We're gonna move on, but Pal Berja gives us something to talk about. We did spend 5 minutes talking.
I bet he can't wait until like CDPR officially lets him loose and just gives him a bunch of actually juicy leaks
Yeah, right.
Because like Flake was mentioning earlier, every time somebody talks to Berja, they're always asking for leaks, always asking for more information, and you must be so frustrated not really be able to giving anything concrete. And when the floodgates are finally let loose, are opened, I bet it'll be great for him to actually give us something good to talk about.
That's good. Breaking news in the chat. Fred Share writes, Berja commented, quote, "Don't worry, more is coming. I've been busy in the studio." Winky smiley face, not just smiley face, not just it's the winky smiley face. So
we got to get our high school correspondents to break down which type of, because it's not just a winky face, McBee. It's a winky face with the nose. So that's a little bit more deliberate, you know.
You don't need the nose. I know what you're saying with just the winky face, but when you add the nose, that means it's serious. I'm having a great time in this podcast, dude. Stories and non-stories. Real story though, Epic Keg Week. This is actually pretty awesome. Name another game that would do this. Any game with like maybe 3 levels of rarities. We're on a CD Projekt Red. Another great premium event, not a premium event, an epic event where every keg has at least an epic card to choose from, which is a silver card. They're the same thing. But you know. This makes me think, I mean, obviously it's great. It's just another piece of generosity. So 2 questions here. Do you think CD Projekt Red is too generous? And do you think the economy is going to get a huge revamp to maybe be not as generous? Just because I don't think anybody has said that CD Projekt Red, like, it's one complaint that I feel like nobody has. I think. Flake, what do you think about the economy in Gwent, especially coming from someone who's playing a lot of a game, Magic the Gathering Arena, which has been criticized heavily for its economy?
Yeah. I mean, the economy discussion about MTGA versus different games it's kind of up in the air because the cards and the amount of cards and just the deck building limitations of 4 golds, 6 epics, etc. Sort of doesn't necessarily line up with MTGA. But is Gwent too generous? I mean, and is this event just over the top? Gwent has always been beyond head and shoulders over everything else as terms of generosity, and I'm not shy to say that. I put in tons of hours into the game, but I haven't exactly spent a penny on it since way back before, at least a year or so, purely off the back of just the events that they have, the amount of giveaways and grinding that you can do. Then again, I also put in, I used to put in at least 30 to 40 hours of Gwent a week. Mm-hmm. So that's like earning a salary, so it's totally justified. But is this event something where they're just being extra generous? Who knows? This might just be them seeing the iceberg down the road, like down in into the to 20 years ahead of them, and saying, okay, just off the Titanic, take whatever silverware you want. It's all yours. Who cares? Because they know that everything's going to crash and burn, and they're going to be raising the Titanic too in another few months, so they can give away whatever the hell they want, because we're not entirely 100% sure what the wiping is going to be of in terms of refunding on cards, etc. So give away whatever the hell you want, is as long as it's not going to sort of, we don't know how that's going to translate come homecoming. I have a strong feeling that this game is going to get, reeled in terms of how generous they are with the cards, and because eventually you'll have to sort of continue to make money. It's a company like anything else, and people are going to bitch and whine about it, but you need to make a profit, right?
True. I don't know, Shamiri, what do you think about the economy generally? I'm sure you've talked to a lot of new players in your stream. I'd say somebody in the chat, I think I just missed it, that says Thor03 says that actually new players have a bottleneck in gold, but I think that having a nice collection of silvers, like that's your knife set, right? Like that's having like a foundation of silvers allows you to build so many different archetypes, I think. Whereas you might build a deck around a gold, but the silvers are like kind of the core stuff you need. Weather clears, like Alzur's Double Cross, your tutors. I think that silver is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, this event is definitely geared towards relatively newer players joining the game during this drought period, because like this is giving you silvers and scraps where most people who's been around for a while already have a near full normal collection, if not premium collection as well. But I think it's a really good move on their part, because it's an incentive for players to try out the game right now, when otherwise there might be not much inflow or influx of new players, new blood at this time.
That's good.
Yeah. And is CDPR too generous? They're definitely too generous. Yes, but they've been working with this for 2 years now. Like Gwent, since its inception, has been this generous. I've never heard of any other game that you can just come in 2 weeks from 2 weeks from your brand new start and have like a competitive deck. And that's how it was for me in closed beta. It might be a little bit longer now, but they also have the quest system, which they didn't have before. So they've made it work for this long, and they doesn't seem like they're bleeding money or anything as far as I can tell. So perhaps this is something that they can continue going on with. I don't know what their secret is, but why they're able to do this. Maybe they just have a lot of capital. But I don't agree with Flake when he says that they'll definitely be reeling it in. I think they could conceivably continue down this generous road.
Yeah.
Well, so I said it that way, like they'll be reeling it in, mainly because they're so far ahead of everyone else. They can still be the most generous, but they don't have to be like if Gwent's a 10, everyone else is like a 4. Like they can sort of dial it down to a 7, still say, hey, we're twice as generous as you guys are, and still sort of reel it in. And again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Trust me, I love when I could just keep my credit card at bay for at least for one game, whereas if I'm playing Magic or Hearthstone or whatever, I know that I have to slap down some cash. There's got to be a little bit of, got to sprinkle a little cheddar on it if I want to be competitive to a degree. But for Gwent, it's a whole different ballgame. Again, keep it the way it is, by all means. In fact, be more generous because it's great. I'm just worried about, from a business aspect, is it sustainable? But I mean, with Cyberpunk down the road and potential other Witcher licensing and the TV show, who cares? Like, this might just be their free gift to the community, right?
Yeah, maybe. And we're just the benefactors.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
actually a great. It's a great segue to talk about Gwent Challenger, which I feel are always gifts to the community. I feel like it's always a fan-focused event. So that's just a great way to swing in there. I do agree, though. Like, I mean, first of all, the game must be doing well enough that there's enough faith put into Homecoming to actually do the development pausing and kind of relaunching. They obviously are putting this actually could just be like a big risk. They're maybe betting too high on Homecoming. I don't think they are betting too high though, but as I say that, I realize that I think that everybody's going to come back and see Homecoming, and it's going to be great. It's going to bring a lot of people in. There's going to be a real boom as well. But we'll see. I mean, being known as a generous card game ain't bad. And also when you have like such a rich Gwent experience, the rich experience that Gwent offers, that's the kind of thing that it's already appealing if the game is great, and it's made even more appealing if you can progress very fast, and then you're just kind of held back by the burden of knowledge, the experience levels that grow in our brains, that kind of stuff that actually makes you a better player. You're not held back by just economy stuff, or you get beat by a deck, you can maybe explore that just because you have a little bit more flexibility. I think it's great. But let's talk about Challenger 4. So obviously the first thing we should talk about, big announcement about the Gwent Challenger broadcast team was made since the last podcast, so it's only been about 6 days because it was right after I talked with Ash Lazelle about it. So I think it was on Friday then. It was last Friday. The big screen there, all of our faces looking all great. So, of course, I'm returning with my co-caster Mogwai. Jagras and Panda, of course, are returning as well. Ash Lazelle, my guest from the previous podcast, one of the hosts. And, of course, Swim returning as an analyst. And the final two people will be Flake, who is joining Ash Lazelle on the hosting side, a spot previously held by people like Maud Garrett and Josh Gray, Marisha Ray and Matt Mercer, and Jesse Cox as well. So bringing in big known internet and otherwise known personalities out there as far as gaming is concerned. Replacing that with the community invite there, I think is really great when it comes to kind of just bringing in more of the community. I saw the sentiment. I know DeMarcus and Mulligan definitely agree, and I saw like a lot of sentiments out there that say that it's really positive. It's good for Gwent because Gwent Challenger in the first place has always been very fan focused. The videos they do, the skits they put on, the songs they write, the characters that have, all those hosts, plus like Bart the Bard, like beloved people that have been brought into the game and have basically kind of changed the way we look at what a tournament can be. I think for a game, it's more of an almost a theatric experience. And then Shinmir, you're joining on the analyst desk with Swim, which is going to offer a little bit of a different dynamic as Jagras has moved to the casting desk as of last open. Gwent Open number 6. So that's a lot of talking from me, guys. I'm going to let you guys talk from now. So Flake, tell me about the first contact that CD Projekt Red made to you? Because for both of you, I have a feeling that I knew that you were being talked about before anybody was talking to you. So I want to know like what that moment was like. Were you talking to them in advance? Did they reach out to you? Flake, what was the process of getting that selection and that bid for Challenger host?
Okay, well, in all transparency, and I would never, I don't like to lie, and I would never lie to people. This was something that before the first Challenger, before the first Open, possibly, I think it was after the first major broadcasted tournament where you were on the desk and whatever. I remember that I emailed. I forgot who it was. It was either Rafal or Rethaz or Pavel. I forgot who it was. It was a long, long time ago. And I said that if there are any spots available for audition, please let me know. This was before I even logged 100 hours streaming in general, even 50 hours streaming Gwent. And I just said, let me know. Then long time went by. We did Wild Hunts and this and that. Wild Hunt 1 was a great success. Wild Hunt 2 was also a great success. It was fantastic. And that's when people started discussing myself possibly. And this is by no means any knock on the previous hosts who were all fantastic. I wish and I aspire to be as talented and as recognized and refined and experienced as they are. However, after Wild Hunt 2, I reached out to CDPR and said, this was purely an innocent move. I said, I do not know what the process is for consideration or for audition. I honestly have no clue. If you can let me know who I can speak to for future events, please let me know. And the response I got was, oh, we know who you are. Don't worry about it. I said,
worry about it.
Yeah, it said, oh, we know who we are. It was kind of very flattering, and it was the first moment where I was like, oh damn, like I don't have to sort of sell myself beyond what I have. And what they said was, we've been talking about you. If these things take time, just hang in there. I said, sure, absolutely. I continued to stream and whatever. And eventually, about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, I've been sitting on this news for a long time, which really kind of it hurts on the inside. But basically, once I got an email to my quote unquote professional Manaburn email address, which never really pings that often, and I saw it. It was from CDPR, and I said, oh, I am banned or I am being punished for something. I said there's some type of copyright. It might just be this mug that they're telling me to go and toss away or something.
All the Larry merchandise, no.
Yeah, I haven't been selling any of it. It's purely for my own enjoyment. But it said, hey, Flake, how are you? We would really like to have you on the team to host Challenger 4. How do you feel about that? Let us know if you're interested. And there was a moment of, this is BS, what's going on? And then I just very casually said, absolutely, I'm interested. Let's discuss. Like I wasn't going to hop on a plane and just go rather than a phone call or whatever. So that's essentially the easy peasy short story of it. And now here we are. There was a very short, minute non-negotiation, so to speak, where I just said, absolutely, whatever it takes, I'll be there. And here I am. And it's fantastic, honestly. It's very, very... I feel like, I've said this a million times. You've seen me tweet it. It says the hard work pays off, and I think that we can all kind of agree to that we all bust our ass to be where we are, and whatever comes our way, there's a certain amount of humility that we should show, but at the same time, we earned it, and there's nothing, I'm not shy to say that.
Well said, Flake. Thanks for taking us on that journey. Shinmiri, on your side, what was your getting involved with CD Projekt Red and that actual moment where you realized you were getting selected, and your story as far as being selected to be part of the Gwent broadcast team?
Yeah, so I think around the time that Demorcus had his first Gwent Open, when he was in Warsaw, he spoke with Vladimir, who was the head of esports, and he recommended me actually to him as part of potential as a caster or an analyst. And Vladimir came and checked out my stream. He liked what he saw. He thought he liked the analytical and educational side of my stream. So when Merchant stepped down for the last Open, CDPR had actually contacted me, asked me if I was interested in maybe being a caster to partner with Panda. And I did like a audition type of like test casting with Panda for that. They ended up going with Jagras over me for that, but Vladimir also told me at the time that he strongly would consider me for the analyst position for the next challenger. And yeah, here we are. Pretty much like, I think just after the Open, Vladimir got back to me and said, hey, we want you for challenger. Are you available? I said, definitely. I want to be there. And yeah, similar with Flake, we had a just short negotiation where I just accepted to all their terms.
Yeah,
like
whatever you want me to do.
Yeah,
exactly.
I got 2 pens.
Yeah, they just sign. It's like that scene where they just slide the envelope, and you're like, yeah, whatever. I don't care what. Yeah. No worries. It's all good.
Exactly. And so
they
we're
slide
super
a paper across the table, and you open it, you lift it up, and it says, "You pay us," and you're like, "Sounds good."
How much, man? Let's do this. Yeah.
Shinmiri, you don't have to answer this question because you didn't bring it up. You didn't have any conflicts or anything you had to work through to make this happen, or you were free. You were free to do this. Everything was all good.
Originally, I was actually planning on going to China, but the trip ended up being postponed for other reasons. Basically, my mother-in-law couldn't make it back there because of green card issues. Yeah, whatever. But
Okay.
it ends up working out. It ends up
I like
working out. I could do the challenger. We can go back to China later this year or next year.
Yeah, whatever.
Boy-
My mother-in-law.
I mean-
Yeah, whatever.
I heard, because I haven't actually we're talking for the first time anyway, so I think I would ask this question to you anyway, even though we're live on a podcast. I heard that when you were being considered for the role, there was an uncertainty about it, and I wasn't sure if there was something you had to work through. So when you were announced as joining, I think you joined the Gwen Masters Discord or something like that. It's just like, he's coming. He can make it. I just remember that was kind of like Jagger and I were talking about that. So that's good. So that's the big news. So welcome to the broadcast team, my friends. I'm looking forward. Well, Flake, I see you fairly regularly, but Shinmiri, looking forward to sharing a beer or whatever you drink
Definitely.
with you. And it's going to be a good time out there in Warsaw or wherever we end up, because I'm not really quite sure. I don't think they haven't announced anything yet, so we're not really sure. But we know it's an SK theme, which means that Monsters will never see a pre-Homecoming era Challenger event. But it probably means that Monsters will be the first Homecoming Challenger event, so there's that too.
Right.
And it's the last Challenger before Homecoming, so in a way it's kind of a farewell to this sort of level of event, the silver tier as far as like the Gwen Masters, Open being the bronze, and the ultimate Gwen Masters, which will be a completely different game when it finally hits, being the gold event. But it means a lot because Challenger is how it all started. Challenger #1 was the very first major Gwent event. Challenger brought us, all these fantastic personalities into Gwent, like all the hosts we mentioned as well. Bart the Bard, of course, Life Coach was a huge person to bring into the community as well. Life Coach brought in a lot of people from around the community. I still talk to people that say that Life Coach was like their catalyst. Shinmiri, you're raising your hand. You are one of those people. You're muted, I think, Shinmiri?
Oh, sorry. Yep, I was gonna say that's me. I'm part of the Life Coach bandwagon. February of last year.
Yeah.
I saw his video. I installed Gwent. Never touched Hearthstone ever again after that day.
Yeah, I think Life Coach is the same way, although I think that he's, I wonder what his involvement is. I mean, this is a whole separate conversation, but I think I was saying on my stream yesterday, I just hope that, he's just, with the Gwent slams, I got to know him and I got to I saw his passion for the game at Gwent Challenger 1, and we did all the Gwent slams and the Gwent together. And I think his presence is definitely missed in the community. And I kind of hope that when Gwent Homecoming comes out, he plays it, he says, wow, they really did improve on a lot of the stuff that I had a problem with. Plus, they made this more engaging. I'm in. And even if he gives it another shot, we know he's coming back for Gwent Masters. He's not going to say no to the ticket. So he's going to come back. So we know he's going to play again. He's kind of like hooked into playing again. Although I think that $20,000 or $250,000 prize pool is
that's not a hook, man.
The best kind of hook you could hope to
him.
have on you. But he's going to come back, so he's going to give it a lot of time. So if there is something to love in there, he will find it. And he played Hearthstone for years and years. So if he's going to love it, he's going to love it. But anyway, the final thing I wanted to say about Challenger and why Challenger always means a lot is because it's always a demonstration for the love of the well-handled Witcher brand that CD Projekt Red always displays. Very thematic locations, a cast of kooky characters that are going to be, beating themselves up all around you and, swilling ale and, maybe doing Skellige things. I don't know, sharpening swords and making shields. Rowing boats, who knows?
The production value of the Challengers just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this one will be no exception when it comes to that.
Yeah.
It's gonna look great, and I just saying it's a Skellige one, which is kind of ironic and funny. It's kind of bittersweet to the fact that the first challenger that I get to go and participate from a production standpoint happens to be themed, or it's thematically presented in the faction that I hate the most, but it's okay.
Like
Ash
the
Lizzle
least.
and I,
It's okay.
That's
Ash
what we
Lizzle and I
say.
got you covered.
Now that you're drinking the Kool-Aid, Flake, now that you're on
Oh,
the
yeah.
payroll, you got to say like the least, not hate the most. It's in the
I
fine print.
apologize. You're right. That is the
You
wrong
saw it.
choice of words. But it's great because Ash Lizzle and I have already formed an alliance, the Flizzle Alliance, the Flake Ash Lizzle Alliance. We are going to be exchanging gifts a la World Cup style, where we sort of, exchange jerseys and whatever. We have sort of representing both our brands, Monsters and Skellige. We will be on our best behavior, at least as long as the cameras are rolling.
Well, it's actually really cool because you are not a fan of Skellige, and Ash Lizzle is Skellige is her faction that she likes the most.
She's the queen.
To put it lightly. So that's kind of like already the dynamic you can build on, and that's fun as well.
Oh, yeah.
As well as you, me, the Monster fanboy, and not getting a chance to go to the Monster Challenger because it hasn't existed yet.
Well, who knows? Who knows? Maybe
Hey,
next
you
time
never
they'll bring
know.
him back.
Maybe some monsters attack in Skellige. We saw them at the Nilfgaard Challenger a little bit. Man, we walked around the corner in one of the stairwells at the Mashna Castle. I remember I was walking with my wife while like everything was getting set up and just kind of turning the corner, and the cosplayer that was dressed as like the Noon Wraith was like right around the corner, like in
Oh,
costume,
wow.
and we're just like, oh.
Oh, hello.
Like no steam effects, just standing there, like not scary
So-
lighting or anything, but.
So I'm going to try to convince Flake that if he gets asked back for the Monster Challenger, that he needs to wear a Larry cosplay at some point during the Challenger.
Yeah,
Well,
What do
like,
you think that be a thing?
one of those full,
Yeah.
like a full body suit, like in
Yeah,
like that
exactly.
green, like a poison
You know,
ivy.
like those T-Rex suits?
Oh.
Where you're, those T-Rex suits? You just make a Larry suit.
All right. I'm
What are
gonna
they
let
called?
you in on a little something.
Kagurumis? The onesie, like the pajama onesie thing that
Yeah.
people wear?
So here's the deal. This has already been explored by certain people, and I know that others have like kind of stream goals with followers or subs, whatever, where they cosplay various. I've seen Always Turtle do it. I know Lock-in sort of played around with it as well. There is a particular Larry-esque costume, and if there's anybody out there who's a big fan of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, there was an episode where Will had to go and
Yes.
put on a production with a kindergarten class, and they were all dressed up as sunflowers. And
getting
he
this
had to
picture
put
right
it.
now.
It was basically like a morph suit with a green tutu and a sort of like a big kind of like the petals around his head. That's what I'm gonna probably have to do if I'm ever welcomed back to the next Gwent Challenger. But we have to
Yes.
get it. That has to be a trending thing. I'm not gonna do it just for you, Shin. I'm not gonna do it just for you, McBee. We're brothers. I know I love you both, but it's we. This is something that I'm sure the fans would probably not want to see with that level of spandex all over my body.
I'm just trying to find a picture and I can't find it right now. But when I get
I'll
a
link.
pic-
I'll
first
link it to you because
I've
I have
gotta
it on,
put this in the show notes because this
Yeah.
as soon as you said it, and David Rodriguez Jr. in the chat, shout outs to DRJR, friend of the show. He also said it before you said it. It's exactly it, man. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We're showing our age, I guess. Shinmir, are you familiar with this scene?
I've seen a little bit of the show. I wasn't a frequent watcher or anything, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, it was. I guess it's a sunflower, not really a daisy. I think that's what it was, right? That's why
Yeah.
I can't find it.
Basically,
We
if you
are off
Google
topic.
Will Smith sunflower. It's all over the Google
Oh, there you
images.
go.
So
There you go. Good stuff. That's awesome. Okay, I'll get this. I gotta get this here. But we should talk about the actual Challenger event because we have, on top of the fact that this is already a great Challenger, we established the fact that this is going to be, as all Challengers, a great show. But there is something extra special about this one, and that is, I would say, the roster is by far the most complete, one of the most complete. I mean, we can't have everybody. We can only have 8 people. But one of the most complete rosters that represents everything that could be good in a tournament. And I want to go through each. Like, it is going to be, and I'm sorry for you guys that are going to watch the cast later for the actual Challenger, because I'm going to be holding on to this narrative for a while because it is inspiring to have something like this. You got Coleman. We'll start off with Coleman here. He's the champ of Gwent Open number 6. He's kind of like the heavyweight. He's impressed people Gwent Challenger number 2, and he's been in almost every event since then. He won Red Dragon. He won Gwent Open number 6. He's the man to beat. He brings really strong decks, and he doesn't tech too hard. He just brings really strong decks that generally have good matchups against maybe stuff that might be Also fair. He's a big fan of Consume. He's kind of notorious to that crazy fast forfeit when JJ won his Open. And he's been at every challenger since number 2. So this is his 3rd challenger. He's got that experience. So he's kind of like that heavyweight fighter. So he's coming out with a fresh win. He's got that momentum. What have you guys been thinking about Coleman, generally as you've seen him in events?
I'll let you. Yeah, you can launch
I think
off
he's
on this one.
like you said, he's definitely the heavyweight right now. He has a ton of momentum coming into this with the Gwent Open win and the Red Dragon win. He's just a fan of bringing solid decks. I don't think I've ever seen him play any sort of like targeting strategy or anything fancy. He just brings decks that he is very comfortable with, very familiar, dominates on the ladder, and dominates in tournaments with them. Really looking forward to just seeing his high level of play. He makes very few mistakes from what I've seen.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And it's also interesting. This name 1997 in the chat saying, "What about Freddy Babes?" Well, it's funny. Freddy Babes was that was the image that popped into my mind where I said we can only have 8 players, because Freddy Babes obviously could be part of kind of like the kind of player and person that encompasses Gwent to date, like involved early, prominent tournament presence for a greater part of the games running in the pro scene. Obviously he was unstoppable all the way up until Challenger 2, and then he got in Challenger 3, and he also had a really good showing there with some pretty wild decks, but he won like 3 tournaments in a row. He's just absolute madness, Freddy Babes. But actually talking about the roster of Gwent Challenger 3, we also have Pro Neo, and this is another great thing. Last Challenger before Homecoming, from Challenger number 1 we have like kind of the OG, the original gangster from the Ukraine, Pro Neo, been around since Challenger number 1, and he heavily influenced the meta at the time. He is was notorious at the time for building Self-Wounding Skellige to the high level that it was played at. Flake, you weren't even really involved with Gwent around the time of Challenger number 1, but you probably watched it. Do you remember anything about Pro Neo's gameplay, or do you remember anything around that time when he first entered the scene?
That was a long time. Yeah, this is
open
way
beta.
Yeah. So I got into it in closed beta, and I do remember that like war criers and self-wounding and stuff like that, and that's kind of like, I'm always a fan of the player that doesn't necessarily refine existing decks and tweaks them to the extent where they can exploit a particular meta and brings them sort of to the next level. I'm always a fan of the types that take the tier 2 and bring them to the tier 1. I mean, it's one thing to take an existing a deck that's already established as powerful and effective, and refining that to a particular tournament. But for instance, Pro Neo is someone who takes a particular deck that is not necessarily popular, like you said, with the self-wounding back in the day and whatnot. I'm always a fan of that kind of innovation and that kind of ambition. I have my particular favorites that I want to root for and whatever. I'm going to keep them relatively private for professional reasons, but there's someone that I can certainly say I admire, and that I will be at least hoping gets through one round.
Well, I remember back in Challenger 1, Pro Neo was the favorite, I believe, coming into it.
Him and
Remember?
Vishra were, yeah.
Yeah. And he had, like you said, he's a good innovator. In the last Open, he brought a tier 2 deck, Veterans, with the spicy Sihel Super Sword edition, and had so much success with it at Open number 6. I wouldn't be surprised to see that deck again at Challenger.
I think that I don't know if he's going to do a repeat performance with that thing, but he might have some new spice altogether.
Yeah.
Pro Neo Pro Neo is one of the players, and I think DeMarcus as well, some of the players that really can showcase that if you're really, really, really good at this game, you can make all sorts of attempts to structure out these very intricate game plans that work on numerous different levels, like the way how Sihel was it still had kind of a backup play, but you had so many ways of actually sculpting it with the archers, which of course worked with the Trissarch Veterans, which isn't the popular unit choice for the Veterans deck. And it was just kind of like you see it on paper and you're like, I never really thought about that, but man, I can see it working just kind of before my eyes. And you know that if you can see it working before your eyes when you see it, imagine Pro Neo, who's probably put in 50, well, maybe 100 hours testing this deck, probably even more than that. Just imagine like how good you can get with a deck that no one's ever seen before. That's a scary, powerful presence that you can bring. But Flake, you said you had some favorites and you're not going to show them, but I think that Shinmiri might have a little bit of bias for the hopeful Andy Wand, winner of Gwent Open number 5, another guy who won it in style with the Aguara. Stuff with the hand, he had hand buff dragoons, really interesting stuff that he had teched for the Genja Fret Herald Houndsnout combo that he was anticipating. It was really well done, and of course he also played at Gwent Slam 2, so he's been around and he's been playing a lot, and he's just a great personality. Shinmiri, what do you think about your teammate Andy going into this one?
I love the guy. Really, really fun person to be around to chat with. Also an innovator, as you mentioned, with the Aguera. The super spicy Aguera buffing up the 20-point Yavin.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm really looking
the first
forward
balanced
to what he
spy
has
in Gwent history, as Andy
yeah,
called it.
exactly. Exactly. Really looking forward to what he's going to bring to the Challenger. I think he's probably, like, if you... this lineup is so stacked that I would even consider Andy as the underdog here, even with his performance at, Gwent Slam 2 and winning Open number 5. I think he's probably considered an underdog in this lineup, and I think I'm definitely going to be rooting for him because obviously him and DeMorcus are both part of my team Aretuza, so I do have that bias there. But I hope they both do really well and they bring some interesting lineups.
I like when Andy talks about like his decks and his choices and decisions, especially when he's watching somebody else play. Like if we're sitting and watching a match that's going on, like the way he talks about stuff, he's just like, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. Like it's just there's no like real argument, there's no like consideration. It's just like, no, you don't play that because it's bad, or you definitely do this. I just like the way he approaches. He got so much confidence, and you can see it in his play as well. But it's interesting as someone who actually won one of the tournaments that gets you to Challenger, like. Going in maybe the hard way, right? Qualifying through the top placement on Pro Ladder and then winning the tournament. One of the harder ways to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're all hard ways to do it. These are the best players in the world. But putting him as an underdog status, you need to have the best of the best. And the best of the best happens to be at this tournament as well. A guy largely regarded as the best in the world, the champ, coming out as the ring holder, the Gwent Challenger 3 winner. Multiple tournament wins, multiple high placements. The regard of the best players in the world as being just the boss, as Adzakov.
We're talking about the one and only Tail God.
We are talking about the Tail God. We're talking about Tailbot. I mean, what else can you say about him that hasn't been said in some cast or something outside of the fact that he's just really good? I mean, Flake, how do you feel about not just Tailbot, but also the fanfare that surrounds him, that he's this kind of emotionless Gwent playing machine that exists to win, and without Gwent you could just imagine him just kind of ascending to heaven. It's just like there's no other purpose for him on this planet.
Now, I will remind everyone that he has never beaten me, so how can he be in the best in the world if you haven't beaten me?
I wish I could say that, but he has beaten me.
I'm just gonna say, in my illustrious Gwent career, I have never been beaten by Life Coach. I've never been beaten by Freddy Babes. Never been beaten by Andy Wand. Never been beaten by Tailbot. Never been beaten by Proneo. So technically, I'm the best in the world. So he can just chill out for a second. Obviously, that's mass exaggeration. I'm very excited to meet this guy because I know that deep down that in that facade of just stoicism, there's going to be some personality that I can't wait to dig at. I hope I get the opportunity to interview him and just sort of hang out with the guy in general, because I know there's going to be some solid moments to extract out of him. I'm very excited. I know that growing up, I was a Yankees fan and a Montreal Canadiens fan, and between the two, there's over 50 World Championships. So there's something to say about dynasties and winners that I really like, and I think that it's kind of good for the sport. It's good to have a dynasty or a champ. As be it as someone to root for or someone to root against. Every sort of sport needs a villain, and some people like him, some people hate him. Either way, he's very polarizing, and that is a good thing for competitive sports, gaming, whatever. It's a good thing.
It's good, and he leans into it, right, with the interviews and stuff. Like every time he has like a pregame like video, like the intro video that talks about his favorite card or how he prepares for the tournament. It's like he's dropping a new single. It's like we're all watching. It's like, what did he say this time? Mm-hmm. And there's always something in there that just makes me lose my mind because he just says it in a Tailbot way. And he's always just, what do you say? Like, they're going to call Proneo Noobneo. Like, I'll never forget. And who is Shaggy? Just another guy in my
Never
way.
even heard of him.
I just never heard of him. Oh, man.
These are solid one-liners. You just drop them and walk away, right? And then let them live where they are. I love it.
It's not even villain. It's like just a presence, right? It's just like Tailbot's at the tournament. Well, he could potentially win it, and no matter who's there. Gentlemen, I just want to just check in on your time because we do want to talk about the other 4 players in the tournament. I know we're going to have to probably skip the other stuff I planned on for strategy, but how are you doing for time as we are approaching the six bells over here?
You got me for another half hour, 45 minutes easy, so I got nowhere to be.
I could do this all day, man.
Oh, Shinmeri showing his Gwent passion. Just wants to talk about Gwent all the time. Again, great choice for the broadcast. Okay, so let's just go through this then, and we'll talk because I also have a little bit of extra time as well. Just want to make sure because I think I have this time stamped how we thought it was going to go, but then we started talking about that tweet, and time stopped. All right, so Tailbot, of course. Shinmeri, do you have anything to add about Tailbot?
This guy is a machine. Mm-hmm. Like you saw this season on Pro Ladder, I think he came late to the party. Just like banged out 600 games, easy number 1. He's like head and shoulders above everybody else right now. I think he played 100 Skellige games and finished like, I don't even know, like 1450 or something with 100. It's insane.
On the basically your qualifying games, yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane how good he is, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him again at Challenger. I think he's, like you said, with the personality and everything, he makes it very entertaining, and he wins in style.
Yeah, I mean, you got it. It's interesting because Tailbot started off being, we would kind of joke around that he was a great player, but the decks that he brought were basically like they were kind of like the stock really good decks that you might find like as a top deck on GwentDB, like a deck you can probably rely on. Maybe you could start like your foundation. It's like, okay, I'm going to learn this deck. I'm going to take like the base stuff. And like, he would come in and just play really good decks and do very well. But then things started to change. After a couple of tournaments, he started to bring in like more and more interesting decks. And in the last one that he played, the Spellitel list, like that was really awesome. And it's almost as if like, I wonder if it's the approach of, I've played well, I've won tournaments, I'm at another tournament, I'm going to try this. I mean, obviously these are competitors that want to win. But when Tailbot was talking about his Spellitel list in that Gwent Open number 5, it was almost as if he just like, I don't like Brewer, and I don't even really like this deck, but it was the best choice, so I brought it. But it was still good enough for him to like solidly win when he got.
He has this air about him, like he's not even trying. Like, yeah, I'm only using one hand, and I'm just like,
yeah,
it's
classic.
It's crazy.
Classic Tailbot.
But that's what makes him so awesome.
And then on the other kind of like the other sort of spectrum of like excellent player is Hannah-chan, the Chinese sensation that has been at every single Gwent Open. And also, I'm trying to remember if he was a challenger number 2 for some reason. I don't think he was. But that was like maybe one of the only times that you hadn't seen him in like an actual CD Projekt Red tournament. I think it might have been challenger number 2, but he was a Gwent Open, everyone 1 through 6, and he won number 4 as well. And he did do pretty well. He arguably 4-0'd Super JJ in Challenger number 3 as Super JJ made the red player mistake of not reading the glow of the graveyard in a mirror match with a Sira, put the wrong Roach and the wrong Cantarella in the wrong deck, got a rematch, and in a game that he was, I'm trying to remember the stuff, but I think people were saying that it wasn't looking good for JJ in the first place, so he wasn't looking favored, and then he got swept after that, which was the last we saw of JJ in pro events. That being said, Hannah-chan has had a number of lots surrounding him because he's played so many events. He brought Greatsword kind of ahead of the curve, although still sort of in the same meta that we're in right now. So even though the meta that we're in hasn't changed very much, it has evolved, and Hannah-chan seemed like he was kind of ahead of the curve with Greatswords, and now Greatswords is almost waning in popularity now. So we've kind of almost seen a full cycle, but Greatsword's biggest supporter in Hannah-chan. I mean, what else is there to say about Hannah-chan other than you can expect him to be there always, play well, and if you're up against him, it's going to be a really, really difficult time to win. Flake, what do you think about Hannah-chan?
Like you said, coming off of a discussion about Tailbot, who's so, I don't want to say, like, flamboyant's not the right word, but he's a very boisterous personality just in his presence alone, whereas Hannah Chan's the complete opposite, where, you know, you can sort of attribute a lot of that perhaps to the fact that there might be a language barrier, or he's just a shy individual as it is, or it's just his razor-sharp focus, where he's really just honed in on winning and performing his best. And like you said, he 4-0'd JJ, which is, you know, in itself kind of a interesting scenario. I'm really intrigued, and you know, I like how you say that, you know, maybe great swords are kind of waning in their popularity. I don't think it's because they're bad. I think it's just possibly there's like a hipster revolt that think that, you know, they're cool now, so we're not going to play with them, or, you know, along those lines. But it's just cool to have a personality there that has been there through all of them. Someone that's reliable and reliably good as well. I was mentioning about how you know, it's good to have villains in the sport. This is kind of your quiet hero that's there to take down the villains, to take down the louder personalities, or the more, you know, the bragging types, or the ones who like to sort of dish the trash talk. He's very quiet, he's very focused, and he's very effective as well, which is really good. He's kind of like your quiet Batman, Hannah Batachan. We can call him Batachan if we want. I don't know, but sort of he's just very in the shadows, lurking in the shadows, just taking out all the villains. So I'm also a fan of Hannah Chan's, and I hope that he does well as well.
It's interesting because he started off kind of as a villain, because didn't he? Oh, no. It was Tailbot that told Hannah Chan, "You will lose." That wasn't the other way around.
They almost have like a rivalry.
That's kind of like that was like the original rivalry, right? Like the "you will lose," and then that was like what started the cold, emotionless killing machine Tailbot kind of persona. Because that was like the first thing that one of the first things he ever said in an event. Just
I picture him like
on the spot. Yeah,
Tail 1000 is his new name.
Yeah, T1000. The T stands for Tailbot. Like the idea that he was under pressure. It's like, ooh, it's my moment. I'm gonna say something like, all right, let's, you know, like channel my inner wrestler, but you know, you will lose. It's just all you need to say. Shinmiri, your views on Hannah Chan?
I don't have too much more to add. I'd just like to say again, he's the most consistent player in Gwent Open history. And he's definitely doing something right, getting him there all the time. I feel like my perception, which could be completely off, but I feel like he is really the polar opposite to Tailbot. While Tailbot's going around like using one hand, getting #1 with 600 games, Hannah Chan's the one that's like grinding 1,500 games every season, and methodically getting to the top at the end of every season to get there to Open. And he's the guy who's like really sweating hard for these wins, and it's almost like a turtle versus the hare kind of story with Hannah Chan and Tailbot, and I like to see how that plays out. Hopefully they get to face off against each other in the Challenger.
Well, we've seen them clash a bunch of times. They clashed in like quarterfinals of an Open. They clashed in the finals of an Open. They clashed in the semifinals of the last Challenger as well. Tailbot defeated Hannah Chan, I believe, to advance to the finals there. So they've actually played against each other a lot in a lot of different stages of tournaments. So, you know, it's always good to see those kind of players, like just, you know, two players that if there's a way to win, they're going to find it. That kind of thing. Like it's almost like it's preordained. Like it almost has to come down to the draws because these players will rarely make mistakes. The interesting thing about Hannah Chan for me is that of all the players, he's the one that has the largest, I think, language barrier as far as, I mean, everybody, like, as far as like, most of us speak English. Many of the players speak Polish. Many of the players speak German as well. Pronio's actually, I shared a cab with him onto the airport last event. Pronio at Challenger #1 actually had someone with him for translation, but he's a bit more open. He opens up a little bit more. But Hannah Chan, there aren't a lot of opportunities to really speak with him. So there's almost like a distance. It's almost like I'm watching him work as opposed to going to the events to like in the presence of all these players. It's more so like in the presence of many of these players, but when Hannah Chan's there, I just get to watch him work, and it's almost like the one thing I really know about him. But he did tweet at me the other day saying that he's also playing the Warcraft expansion, so that is one more other thing I do know about Hannah Chan. Demorcus, though, let's talk about Demorcus. Team Demorcus, I have in the show notes, I have it like Team Demorcus, Team Hannah, because I took it right from the tweet about showing support for your favorite players. So we have DeMarcus here. I have him down here as the kind of like the revolutionary. He brings like some really interesting games and really interesting moments have happened around DeMarcus. DeMarcus qualified through crown points, not actually winning any of the tournaments. Kind of getting that cursed. He's kind of like the new cursed kid on the block. Adzikov kind of passed it on to DeMarcus as he was kind of stuck in the quarterfinals despite having really good techs or really interesting decks or a lot of great matchups, just kind of getting the matchup that doesn't work for him. Having the matchup against Mole Legion in the last Gwent Open, a terrible matchup for DeMarcus, and somehow Mole Legion having deadly luck in that match that actually got DeMarcus to advance and ultimately qualify for Gwent Challenger. Shinmira, I'll let you lead this one off here. DeMarcus, your teammate, one of your teammates on Team Aretuza, the founder of Team Aretuza. DeMarcus told me last Gwent Open that this might be his last event. First of all, he wasn't sure if he was going to advance, as it hadn't started yet. But he didn't know if he'd have a chance to do another event after this one. But by winning or by advancing, he has to play this one. So, kind of what's the morale around DeMarcus and kind of building up and preparing for this tournament that he wasn't even sure he was going to be able to make?
Well, I think DeMarcus is going to give it his all. I think that he's one of the players. Obviously, I have a little bit bias, and I get to see some of the inner workings behind his preparation more so than any of the other players. But he puts a ton of work into tournament preparation. He's trying out all these different decks, practicing all the time with our teammates. Coming up with some really ingenious stuff. I really liked his lineup for the last Open.
Oh, yeah.
It was unfortunate, like you said, that he matched up against Mole Legion, one of the few other players who weren't running Greatswords or Consume, which he was targeting.
Yeah.
Still managed to get to the semifinals, so he broke the quarterfinal curse last Open. So he does have a little bit of momentum on his side. Hopefully he can do well in this Challenger, and if he wins it and gets himself a ticket to the Masters next year, I'm sure he will make it work, and he will be back for more, I think, if that happens. I wouldn't count him out just yet. I think that he has a really good shot at winning this, and with a little bit of luck on his side, I think I could see him doing really well.
Yeah, as far as the draw for the tournament brackets, the luck wasn't really on his side. His luck was on his side in the Mole Legion game,
yeah,
which is the tragic game for the Team Aretuza fans, as they had to watch one team member face off against the other. Also, the Team Aretuza team having to kind of divide your efforts as well. To feeling like you're leaving somebody behind is obviously not a great feeling. And then having to go up against possibly his worst matchup in Mole Legion winning, and then Pro Neo was also a really rough matchup. So it didn't really give a lot of credit to how good DeMarcus's lineup was there. So I'm expecting the interesting thing. Flake, did you see that Imler's Sabbath, just that slog in the quarterfinals of the last Open when Mole Legion was just trying to find a way to get around DeMarcus's Sabbath, and like we actually got to see the real world ranked ladder frustration on the big stage?
Well, that's the thing, right? When you see it in the flesh like that on a big stage with a lot on the line, more so than just an MR loss, it becomes even more frustrating, and everyone could feel the frustration sort of just ooze out of their computer sets or whatever. Like the internet that day was just full of salt, feeling it both ways. It's just fun to see that kind of emotion and futility when you've experienced it yourself on many occasions.
Yeah.
DeMarcus, in my opinion, is I mean, I've spoken to this guy many times. He's a fantastic person. He comes into my streams every now and then. We have amazing chats. He's a good friend. And I mean, someone who has the benefit and I don't want to call it a luxury, but the resources that he does, which is a fantastic team of other competitors around him to help him prepare. That's something that other players might not have available to them, where their teams or their support crew might not be as refined as Aretuza. Not saying that in itself is a crutch to bring you to the levels he's made it. Obviously, there's a fundamental amount of skill involved, but I think that's something, a kind of little X factor that he has himself and Andy, that are just it's going to be interesting. I mean, Aretuza themselves, I mean, Shin can talk to this, and I mean, I've spoken and I've had conversations with them as well, and it's just amazing to see just how much time goes on behind the scenes for a tournament. You think that you could just put together a list and run with it, but it's so much more than that. And that's, I mean, I don't play pro. I couldn't imagine devoting that kind of time and effort to it, but again, like I said, this could be just the X factor, that team affiliation that allows him to, advance to the finals.
Yeah, resources he gathered, of course, being the founder of Team Aretuza, and actually building a really great community of people and a really great team, and that's continuing to expand, of course. This next player I really want to talk about. This is such a great story. Like I said, every single player has something really great that they're offering, and one of my favorite stories when it comes to like professional sports or esports or whatever competition is the comeback kid story. We have Game King, who we haven't seen since Challenger 2, where Life Coach beat him as Game King ran the exact lineup Life Coach was anticipating and basically obliterated him. Game King was at Gwent Opens. He won a Gwent Slam as well. Just a fantastic player. One of the most delightful people you'll ever meet. Him and his twin brother. They are and his brother's always with him as well. So shout out to Lemon Green as well. That's the screen name he goes by. And it's just, this guy is just one of my favorite people, and I have almost exclusive meetings with him. Well, no, he was at Opens and he was at Challengers and almost all the Gwent Slams. He's Austria's last hope is Super JJ. We haven't seen him since Challenger 3. Life Coach, haven't seen him since Challenger 2. So kind of like, and we haven't seen, sorry, JJ's German. What I meant to say was Shaggy is the Austrian player. But we have Game King coming back to the scene, winning the online qualifiers, no less. So we talked about the hard roads to get there. He's already run a tournament. And he even said in his tweet, old Game King is back. So he's embracing his like previous greatness, because he was up there. Like at some point people were saying Game King, he was the best in the world. Like he was out there. Like when Tailbot was unknown, Game King was known. Like that's kind of like where his legacy starts. So, and I remember our interviews at the very first time I ever interviewed him. Just, he could talk about Gwent. This is a guy that can talk about Gwent and Gwent strategy forever. Like, really. You think you guys can do it? This guy basically will stay up all night and talk about Gwent with you guys. So, Game King, it's great to see him back. Flake, is it good to see? How do you feel about the comeback kid story? As another sports fan, you probably love this as well.
Well, like I was saying, there's always that one villain that you want, the dynasty that you either love or hate. Usually if you're loving it, it's because it's your go-to team. Otherwise, you're hating that villainous kind of overlording, always winning mentality. And someone like Game King, who's been in the show for so long, and it might have been a matter of fact where, you had such early success. You were the crowned as, and that's obviously pun somewhat intended, I guess, with Game King, but you were crowned as the best in the game, best in Gwent for a period of time, and you won some tournaments, you did really well, and suddenly kind of faded into obscurity where you're not necessarily getting involved in all the tournaments so much, and then these other upstarts kind of emerge and sprout out, people like Tailbot and all these other names, and maybe just possibly he just thought that, maybe it's time to sort of gain back some of that glory. The comeback kid story is always one of the best in the sports narrative. And that's why, like you said, at the beginning of this entire conversation, there's so many interesting storylines to follow that Game Kings himself is so unique that he's obviously going to be one to watch, because he has the pedigree and just the skill set to possibly dethrone these new the new top dogs, the new kings of the hill.
Yeah, I remember Gwent together. He had a finals placement and actually lost to Mogwai, who won. That was Mogwai's last tournament appearance, winning the Gwent together. And then he got to the finals again in Gwent Open #1, and lost it to I can't remember now. Actually, I'm completely blanking on who won Gwent Open #1. But then he won Gwent Open #2 after getting to the finals, wondering if he was going to get to the finals again and actually not win. Well, I'm embarrassed that I can't remember the Gwent Open #1 winner at this moment. You'd think that would be burned into my mind, but I can't quite put my finger on it.
The encyclopedic knowledge, McPhee, kind of has to end at some point.
Or was it Freddie and whatever? Well, somebody in the chat will probably get there. The last person I want to talk about. Oh, unless Shinmeri, did you want to? Here's the thing. I slowed down. I wasn't talking like in great depth about the players at first because I knew we were going to run up against the time. But now I'm slowing down a bit. So if you have anything you wanted to say about any of these players that I maybe skipped ahead on, feel free to. But Game King, Shinmeri, you've probably watched him play for a while. What do you think about that, with the fact that he's coming back to Gwent?
I love the comeback kid story. Game King is back to claim his throne. I've never had the pleasure of meeting him in real life, but I've chatted with him online before, and I've seen him, on the Gwent Slam broadcast and stuff like that. He's just such an awesome person, and he's always so happy and enjoying himself and loving the game.
Mm.
And I really like that somebody like that is going to be there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to bring, what he's going to come back onto the big stage with, and definitely rooting for him and looking forward to meeting him in person.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be good to see him again. And by the way, I think my memory is clouded because I'm thinking that Gwent Together was Gwent Slam 1 or something like that, but it went Mogwai at Gwent Together. I think it was Freddy number 1, Game King number 2, and then Duha was number 3, and then it was just those 3. I'm pretty sure that's how it went. Just as I'm remembering here. But yeah, Freddy winning that one notoriously with that crazy game he had to play, he was playing against Swim, playing a mill game, and then they had a game crash and they had to play it again, and then there was another crash and Freddy just gave the game to Swim because Swim was going to win that game anyway. But it was like a 2-hour single game, series. It was like a 2-hour series. Freddy versus Swim, the longest series probably that ever will be played in Gwent. That was the one he ended up winning, I think. And then finally, because no tournament isn't complete without the dark horse, you have Ethrin, where one of the E's is a 3, the first E. Or is it the second E? Ethrin. He's coming in, also winning the qualifier, who has never made an appearance at a Gwent event, like a televised, broadcasted Gwent event, where it's kind of like Adzikov back in the day at Gwent Slam number 1. You don't know anything about him. The only thing you know is that he's good at Gwent. So it's like a mysterious assassin from another land coming in. It's kind of like what you end up knowing about Tailbot even after you get to know him. It's kind of the same idea. So what we know about Ethrin is personality, the way he plays, the things he likes, the decks he's known to play. You have nothing. You have absolutely nothing. And we get this every now and then. Like when Shamel came in, he had some pretty interesting stuff to show as well. But I have no idea how Ethrin plays. I've never spoken to him. All I know is that he got here in the hard way with the online qualifier. But Shinmir, you play in the Pro Ladder. Have you run into Ethrin before? Do you know anything about his gameplay, or have you talked to him previously?
Yeah, I've talked to him a bit. I've played him on Pro Ladder. He's definitely a strong player. I think we actually saw him at Red Dragon. I think he played at Red Dragon, or at least he was. Okay. So, and also we have a little bit of information because there was public deck list for the Challenger qualifier tournament, and I did take a peek at Ethrin and Game King's list, and I think they brought similar lists. I think Ethrin actually had my favorite list in all the top 8 qualifiers. He had like veterans, Tempo Calvite, really just solid decks that I personally really enjoy playing. So that already like makes me like him even more. He is also part of, I think he helped Demorcus with the prep in the last Open as well. So he has some relationship with Team Aretuza. So I am rooting for him as well. Looking forward to seeing what this dark horse, this new kid on the block, has to offer at Challenger.
Yeah. It's tropey, right? It's cliche. Maybe not tropey, maybe more cliche. Like trying to we don't have to try to find. That's the thing though. Like we're not trying to find a narrative with these 8 players. It's all there. It's not. I'm not searching. I'm not digging. I've met everybody here before except for Ethrin. That's the one exception. But like I know these people. Like we know these people. The people who have watched all these things to get to know these players. It is all here. It is one of the most exciting rosters. There is no way you can divide this bracket or divide any of these series that does not make for every single one of these series to be interesting from the quarterfinals to the finals. I truly believe that. And that honestly has not been true for every tournament. Sometimes we do the bracket draw show and afterwards we're kind of like, man, like it just, we think we see all the greatest storylines and then it just doesn't pan out like that. But this one, you can't go wrong. I just don't think you can go wrong. I mean, obviously we don't want to see Demorcus play against Andy because it's kind of a repeat of what happened going up at number 6, especially if it's kind of a weird matchup on top of all of that. So you probably don't want to see something like that. But you're going to see a lot of stuff. It's going to be like Group of Death, all of these quarterfinals, I think. And do we have any bold predictions now that we've talked about these players? We talked about the champ. We talked about the hopefuls. We talked about the comeback kid, the dark horses. Where do we think this is going to go? Shinmiri, you said that you think that Andy might be an underdog. So I think we might put that on the checklist. So how about we do this? Let's do this because I'm going to talk to you guys after the tournament. We're going to make, I didn't clear this with you guys, but we're going to make three bold predictions. that we can quantify. So saying that Andy's the underdog isn't really quantifiable if he loses or wins.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it changes anything.
Sure, you can. You got the Twitter polls.
You got the Twitter poll. Oh, you do have the Twitter poll. Well, then, yeah, so he may lose every Twitter poll. So if he loses every Twitter poll, if he has more than one Twitter poll, then yes. Okay, so that's a good idea. Yeah, Shinmei, I like that. So let's make 3 bold predictions here about what we think we're going to see here, where in a game, in a tournament where I think anything could happen. Flake, lay one on me.
All right, here's a fat drop for you guys. Again, like there was no prep on this, so I was kind of just sort of rummaging through my brain to try to figure something out as you were talking. Here's a bold prediction. When Tailbot loses, it'll be because of a sweep. He will get swept through, right out of the tournament. So he will not. When he loses, it'll be because of a sweep. That is my bold prediction.
I don't think you can make a bolder prediction than that. Shinmei, do you want to stick with Andy being the underdog as your first bold prediction?
We could do that. Yeah,
all right, so for my bold prediction is that there is going to be a game-losing misplay, which is I think that the reason why I think this is a bold prediction, because that we see this a lot, is that the caliber of these players, it's really hard to say that any of them would if you had to pick any of these players to make a misplay, I can't do it. So I'm not going to say that who's going to make a misplay, but one of these players who don't make misplays is going to make one. It's going to cost them, let's say the series. It's going to be a series costing misplay that that Shinmei, you're going to analyze the hell out of. That's what I think. There is going to be a series costing misplay. Do you have another one for me, Flake?
Okay, so it's 3 apiece, right?
Well, maybe 3 is too many. Maybe even 1 is okay, as we are running along here.
I could sort of toss
You said
some
another
other
half
stuff
an
out.
hour, and it's been almost a half an hour, so we don't
It's
have to
okay.
do this 2 more times.
I am here till the end, so don't even worry about it, because I think that I can sort of dig through dig out another one of these. And here's another bold prediction for you. And the bold prediction is someone will miscalculate a Scorch. I think that is as bold as it'll get.
Your predictions are the boldest ones, because these are like things.
What do I have to lose? Because if
Tailbot
I'm
being
wrong,
swept,
it doesn't matter.
a Scorch miss. These
That's
are like,
like-
whoa.
That's like a coming of age thing.
Oh, I know. You want to talk about a complete, stamp of just that's going to sort of haunt you for the rest of your life, is on a big screen of potentially 50, 60,000 viewers is getting scorching the wrong thing, or there's going to be some type of Scorch-related miscalculation wherein someone is either going to have it stuck in their hand, bricked in their hand because they held on to it too long, or they're scorching the wrong thing. Some type of Scorch-related mishap.
Okay, so you think Scorch is going to backfire or be a liability? That's a different story, I think. The way you're presenting it is that a player is going to play Scorch and it's not going to have the desired effect. Which now, I think if you're winning the boldness. You're winning that part of this game.
I don't want to toss any shade over to Shinmei, but saying that if his bold prediction is going to be that someone's an underdog, I figured I'd roll the dice a little bit more than that and really throw some actual numbers, some real lettuce on this salad.
I got some other good ones too.
Okay, Shinmei, let's hear it.
So my next one is that at least one game will end in less than 5 minutes, a la Colamone Super JJ from Open number 4. I think somebody will just get shut out of Neckers, or there'll be an all-in Sabbath deck that somebody just has no way of dealing with, and they'll just concede in less than 5 minutes. I think we'll see something like that again this year.
I like that one.
All right, so a game ending in a forfeit, basically showing that basically a tech runs into its perfect matchup or something like that. So that's a good one. I think that's a good one, because I actually I don't think we'd ever see that again. But then again, I'm still surprised that Consume has Consume has been pushed to a fringe where it's probably its most dangerous. Like when everybody was bringing it, it's like, all right, well, I'll tech against it and maybe still have a chance. But when it's fringe, you're maybe weakening up your matchup, so it's scary. My second bold prediction is I want to throw out some of the predictions in the chat. One of the predictions coming in from Kochua, another Team Era 2's member, that we'll see 4 different type of Skellige decks. That's a good prediction. No Soul 1994 is saying there will be at least 1 Spellitel. I think that's fairly bold, because I don't think it'd be a top pick for. But I can't read everybody. I can't read everybody in the chat's bold prediction. But I'll say, I gotta think about this one. I'm gonna say that a player. Okay, this is dead air now, but I'm going to say that a player is going to win a game with a card that is not a sure victory. How about this? A player is going to take an RNG chance with something that is like a Triss or a Dijkstra or like a Stennis or something that isn't a sure thing, but a player is going to take a gamble, a calculated risk, but still a large risk, get the pull that they need that decides the game that they're playing. Is this even like that? Even that good of a prediction?
This is yeah.
But I mean, you always want to thin, and you always want to play to the best possible like odds. But I'm going to say that a player is going to play maybe even against the odds. I'm going to say a player is going to play against the odds for basically a nuts situation where if they hit it, they are in a commanding position, and it basically wins them the game right there. But it's not favorable odds to do it.
You're playing with fire there, but you're like next to a fire escape with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah,
like
I got one
outside.
foot out the door with
you got all kinds of escape routes there.
Okay,
we'll accept it. That's okay.
It's basically someone's gonna really, really high roll, but to the point where we all have to agree that it was within my prediction. Like it was a bold high roll. We have to all agree that it was a bold high roll.
All right, we'll take it.
All right, if we want to go for 3. Like lay a third one on me. Well, I really think about my third one here, so I mean.
So all the pressure. So I thought it was gonna be like. First of all, I didn't even know there was gonna be bold predictions, and then now we're late on.
This is an on-the-spot fun thing that I just kind of
absolutely.
I wanted to make predictions, but this is way more fun.
I totally am gonna steal from the chat here because I'm a man of the people.
Go for it.
And I will give credit where credit is due. From Ryan Godric, I like this one. This one is a bold prediction that there's going to be a game that ends in a flat-out tie, that the last round is going to be so neck and neck and so well calculated that both players are going to have to replay it, or it's just going to be a complete wash, and it's going to end in a fat-ass tie.
Wow.
That's my bold prediction.
It's interesting because in Gwent Open number 6, we saw 2 ties, and they were both Pro Neos games. But it's very uncommon to see a tie. I would say it's the least bold of your predictions, but you're definitely allotted for that one, I think. Shinmeri, what do you think? One more thing. Also, I do
My
like
last
some of these
prediction is that we will see a card that has never seen play in Gwent Masters series before in the past. So something like a Joanna, or I don't know what crazy stuff. Like I think we've even seen Necromancy before, but something crazy
DeMarcus.
that we've never seen before at an official Gwent tournament.
Like
I think
White
Babyorn or like King
White
of Beggars.
Frost is going to make an appearance, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, White
you know
Frost we've seen.
Have we seen it?
I mean, White
maybe
Frost
back
has
in
been
the-
good. Has been like White Frost was good at some points in Gwent's history, but like Joanna has never changed since she was brought into the game. So, but it's interesting because her effect isn't like it's not like weak. It's just not competitive. But you know, that's an interest. Yeah, like a Joanna specifically. Shout out to Repelmer, of course. But yeah, like the way we saw Sihil last time. Never ever before. We saw Aguara. I mean, that's pretty good. I like that. A brand new card.
Ogre meta is now confirmed. It's happening. There's going to be an Ogre deck, and it's going to just absolutely take everyone by storm.
Hey, DeMarcus brought the Ice Trolls. Do we even see that Aridin deck actually get played? He had an Ice Troll Aridin deck that was legit greatsword destruction. It was awesome. But we did see some ogres. I do like some of the stuff in the chat. One of the ones that I really liked from Tummy99 here. Bold prediction, or bald prediction, as he put it. Someone will get milled, not because they're facing mill, but they will get milled out of cards in some way, and they will lose because of that. I love that prediction from the chat. As well as like, Arrivederci saying Pavetta could be a card that we see. Maybe like Milva or something that has like a really niche, weird thing that you could make it work. I mean, Asira puts spies back in the deck. Maybe Milva does it. I like the idea of playing Milva on a huge dwarf that you've boosted up, and then you can play Polly Barkley and get it again. I've always liked that idea. It's really hard to make that work, of course. I'm just killing time because I don't have a third prediction. But I'll think about that third prediction.
Just drop any of them.
Just drop anything. All right. What's a crazy thing? I'm going to say that let's make a big prediction about the finals. Let's think about the finals. I'm going to say that in the finals, oh man,
All right, let me help you out.
I'm
gonna go
stuck.
to
I don't know
5
why.
games.
I don't know why I'm stuck on this.
Finals will be a 5-game series mirror match the exact same deck archetype.
Ew,
That's
gross.
the
No,
bold prediction.
I don't want to predict that because I don't want to be right.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
want.
I don't want to be right because I actually don't like
enough.
casting
You want to
mirrors.
talk about like hot long odds and potential potential outcomes. That's a lot of variables that we have to calculate there. It's possible.
I'm
You
just
make
going
a
to
bold
say.
prediction about Swim's attire.
Oh yeah, here's a bold prediction. Bold prediction: Swim possibly wears pants for at least 2 hours in one day. That is a bold prediction.
It's pretty bold. It's pretty bold. And they could still be sweatpants and probably still be on brand. So I think you can probably get around that and still work. It works for both of you. Yeah, I'm going to say that my bold prediction is that Panda will be the loudest dressed caster of the 4 casters. Actually, of all of us. The loudest. And Mogwai will be the most toned down, muted. Although I actually get some ridiculous outfits too, so I can make the prediction that I will actually be the most toned down, muted person outfit wise. And Panda will be. I think Panda being the loudest because I think he requests to not. He's more of like he tries to have the presence of more like a newscaster or a weatherman, whereas I'm more of like I want to be like the like a little bit beyond used car salesman, but a little bit under like game show host, I think. Like somewhere in between. Now, game show host, I think, is actually right on. I'll say game show host is like my level of flair. But Panda will be the loudest dressed is my final bold prediction. I'll put this stuff up on Twitter. I'll put this in the Commando newsletter, which I will put out. In fact, we're just going to jump right into the community section here because I'm going to be talking about the Patreon. We talked to the chat a little bit, but we're going to wrap it up and take it home here right after this. All right, my friends, we did have an original kind of strategy section because I wanted to talk about Flake about Death Wish, talk to Shinmiri about Northern Realms, but we ran super long for all the best reasons. We had more time to talk to our guests about themselves and to talk about the big event, which is really kind of what we were going to be talking about on this podcast anyway, which we're all involved in and very excited to talk about. So that's fine. We can leave it with that. But I do also want to thank everybody in the chat for hanging out. And, of course, a huge shout-out to our Commandos, which this podcast is supported by our Commandos. Who are our patrons at patreon.com/commandershorn. I'm putting more of a priority on the podcast and the Patreon, of course. And I'm putting less of a priority on my streaming at the moment because I think the podcast is just a really important thing in my life, and I'm just really thankful to have all you guys supporting the podcast. So I do want to read one thing very, very quickly. We won't have a chance to talk to the chat, although I do like a lot of the stuff that you guys shared with me, some of your bold predictions I did get a chance to read over the course of the podcast. But I do want to talk. I want to bring back the email. Feral265, frequent email of the show, emailed a very long and verbose email as he does. I'm going to read the first couple of sentences and then just get to the gist of what he's saying because I want to talk to you guys about it as well. But I just wanted to put this out here. Feral talking about being well into the long... This is a quote. "We are well into the long, dark night that is waiting for Homecoming, and we're all feeling the strain. The same decks, the same meta, no new content. We're hanging on for grim death to the hope that Homecoming will make everything all right again in the world of Gwent." But really, what he's really trying to say is, what is the most difficult thing about the Homecoming waiting period? And what is keeping us all interested in the game? Now, Shinmiri, you kind of already answered this because that was something that I wanted to talk to you about because you are a very consistent streamer, and you're kind of leading the charge as far as like that sort of educational, analytical stream that you put on, and you're very much kind of building a huge community around it. So you can take an additional spin on this, especially with Feral's dramatic but very well seen, I guess. Feeling that we're all going through as we're waiting for new content. But Flake, what keeps you going when it comes to being involved with Gwent? Obviously, we're all involved with Gwent Challenger. We're high on Gwent right now. We're all like very excited, and we're studying up. And of course, the desire for Homecoming is huge. Now I'm speaking for my own part, but Flake, I'll let you speak about it. When you get that kind of feeling like Gwent Homecoming, when's that new news? How do you handle that kind of stuff and that sort of outcry from your chat when you stream?
So there's a lot that's sort of keeping me going, and it's difficult for people who play the game, a lot more regularly than I do. And I'm the first to admit that my gameplay with Gwent has sort of been turned down a lot lately, purely from the fact that, I mean, as someone who mains monsters more so than anything else, as a Death Wish aficionado and fan, that I've sort of exhausted that archetype to its limits for a long time now. That I don't play as much Gwent, but that means by no means insinuates that I am sort of sitting back. There's a lot going on in the background that keeps me well invested in the game and well interested in it. And one of those being is that there's Wild Hunt as a community event down into the future and whatnot, and being in communication with CDPR about those events down the future. So there's a lot going on in the background that keeps me well in tuned and keeps me interested in both the news, where the game is going, the health of the game, the health of the community itself, and the interest of the community. That is an important aspect in my life that I like to stay focused on and attached to. So I might not be playing as much, but that just means that I'm behind the scenes putting all that work into the game and interest in the game from a peripheral standpoint, an off-camera standpoint. So there's a lot coming down the pipe that I cannot talk about yet because there's still a lot of little details that are going to be hammered out. But I can assure you this, that our fingers are crossed for Wild Hunt 3. It's an almost certainty, and it's going to be an absolute bomb of a show. It's going to be bigger, better, badder, awesomer, and much more involved. And I cannot give you more details, but I can say this: it's gonna be significant. So that's where I'll leave it, and that's where all my Gwent's focus has been dumped into. So anytime you don't see me playing Gwent, it's because I'm in the background putting on or organizing community events. So stay tuned for that, because that is going to be something I am dying to let you know about. But it's kind of in the cauldron, just simmering for now.
For sure. And Shinmiri, I don't know if you wanted to take another stab at a question of keeping your interest, but if you have nothing else to add, I'm also curious about your stream. You stream without music. If you didn't want to add anything else about streaming and like waiting for homecoming and that kind of thing, I'm curious why you choose to stream without music, whereas so many streamers will have in-game music or music playing. Is it because you hate music?
No, I love music. It's because, one, for a couple reasons. One, if you play music, a lot of times it ends up muting your VODs, and people like to go back and watch VODs. And people have come directly and told me that I loved how you don't play music, so I can actually enjoy your VODs without it being muted. Other thing is, I think everybody has different taste in music, so I prefer not to stream music and just have my viewers listen to whatever they enjoy, on their own computer or on their own iPod or whatever. And lastly, music sometimes distracts me from the game. Like, I feel like I can concentrate better on interacting with the chat and playing at a high level without music in the background. So for those three reasons, I don't play music. But I do love listening to music. And then as well as for Farrell's email with regards to Homecoming, like I said before, just trying different things. Like, even if you're known or if you're feeling comfortable with only this one archetype or this one faction, maybe this is the time to just to forget about climbing to GM and just to try out different archetypes that you've never played before. Maybe try out the special arena modes that get released once every few weeks, and just try to enjoy everything that the game has to offer. And Homecoming is coming soon. Like, people always say soon TM. It's very soon now. We're more than 2/3 of the way through. Leaks are going to start coming out. I think it's very likely that we'll see some sort of preview or some sort of leak for Homecoming at the Challenger. And according to Birza, closed PTR and possibly open PTR shortly afterwards, either at the end of this month or sometime next month. So we're very, very close. We're in the home stretch here. The light, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And once leak season begins, it's just going to be awesome.
I feel like I know what my life is like now, and I remember what my life is like when I was at my most involved. Like, I used to have a 6-hour daily stream weekdays, plus podcast, plus videos, plus going to the events, and it didn't matter. Like, I was running on pure adrenaline for 6 straight months, from Challenger 1 maybe like all the way to Challenger 2 and like into Midwinter, I was just like this like unstoppable machine. But I know that now, because like now feels like it's almost like, because I'm a little, I'll be honest, I'm a little burned out from playing it a lot. So I do play it. Obviously, I open it up every day, but I don't play as much. But I know when Homecoming comes out, I'm almost scared because I know I'm going to dive in and like I'm just going to like let the stream take me away, because it's going to be like you have permission to get into a new game. Now, I say permission. I don't mean like, that sounds bad when I say permission, but it's, you have basically, you're going to get into a new game. You don't have a choice. I'm guiding you to this new game. We're going to obliterate the old game, so no one's going to ask you why you're not playing old Gwent. You're going to play this new game that has all the nostalgia, all the artwork you're familiar with, a lot of familiar features, but it's going to be Gwent 2 for all intents and purposes. Going to be Gwent 2. And you now get to play with this, and also we have complete support over it, and it's kind of already building on an existing fan base, so it starts out popular. Plus, we're bringing back all your old friends because we're all waiting for Thronebreaker. Plus, Thronebreaker is going to bring in a whole new bunch of people, so it's going to be like, get ready to work overtime in a world where you're already working 24 hours. It's kind of like how it feels to watch this tidal wave come towards us. And we haven't even seen a screenshot. Man, we haven't even seen a screenshot. So the idea that PTR is coming like within, like the idea that it's coming like maybe at the beginning of September or whatever time is like, you get nothing and then you get everything. It's going to be, well, just as crazy as some of these 100 change patches we've had in Gwent before. It's going to be so much. So, I mean, that's a good place to end it, right? Hopeful for the future. Gwent Challenger, very, very exciting. My guests, Flake and Shinmiri, on the Gwent Masters broadcast team. My friends, where can people find you on the internet when you're doing your thing on a daily basis? We'll start with Flake. Where can people find you out there?
On Twitter, you can catch me at WatchFlake. On Twitch, twitch.tv/WatchFlake. There's going to be a new season of Gwent trivia coming down the pipe as well, with a lot of surprises with that. You can also catch the Mana Burn Show, which is a podcast about all types of CCGs with great guests. Follow Mana Burn events on Twitch as well, and on Twitter at that same address. And I stream Mondays through Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, various different card games, Gwent included, and Wildcard on the weekend. So that's where you can find me.
Excellent. Shinmiri, where can people find you on your week daily grind out there for... do you catch that #1 rank when you go for it? A lot of your stream titles are going for #1. You catch that?
Not yet
number
this
one
season.
Here. Not yet.
Last season, I think the last 2 seasons, I've hit #1 at different times. Mm-hmm. This season, not yet, but looking to try to finish at least top 100. Mm-hmm. And you can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Shinmiri2, and I stream every weekday starting at 10 a.m. Pacific or 7 p.m. CEST. I'm also involved with the Aretuza Gwent Talk show. That's every other Monday on the Team Aretuza Twitch channel at 10 p.m. CEST.
Right on. And finally, for me, of course, I can be found. You are watching us on my channel right now at twitch.tv/McBearded, where I am streaming a little less in August. I think that's just how it is. I mean, I'm going away. I'm going away on the weekend, and I'm also going to Poland next week for Gwent Challenger 4 with these fine gentlemen here. So it's just, there's a lot of days where I'm not around, and I took a lot of time off in August. So it's just been kind of like my pre-homecoming treat, I guess. But you can expect to see me streaming a lot in the future. Gwent Homecoming, like I was just talking about it, my eyes almost get wet with excitement. It's just like, I'm like looking at, I'm just teary-eyed, like, yes, it's finally here. It's finally here. That's how I feel about Gwent Homecoming coming out. But for now, you can find me when I do stream on McBearded. Of course, you can find out when I'm streaming live. Turn on your notifications on Twitter, perhaps, at McBeardCH. Finally, you can find me on McBeard at YouTube, where this podcast and all previous Commander's Horn podcasts are there for your viewing enjoyment in a nice, handy playlist as well. We will wrap this up here. Once again, find us on Twitter at Commander's Horn. Email us on the show, like Feral265 did, commandershornpodcast@gmail.com. Flake, thanks so much for coming on the show. Shinmiri, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thanks very much, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure, man. Anytime.
My absolute pleasure. But that'll be it. Thanks so much, everybody in the chat. A healthy showing for the chat, guys. It was an absolute pleasure for having you on the chat. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, my friends, best of luck on the path.